We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show on the Total Education Network, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. And the celebrities keep rolling on. I had a little break in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Now I'm back doing interviews, and I just love it. And my kids are going to get a kick out of this one. I want to welcome the program celebrity Lisa Jakub from Mrs. Doubtfire and Independence Day. Lisa and author, thanks for calling, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to talk to you.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you as well, especially the process of being a child actor, because I know that my daughter, who's 8, might want to get involved in entertainment, and maybe some of my other kids, especially me being in the entertainment field and making the connections in Hollywood and different things to consider what you had to go through as a child actor. So tell us specifically the story a little bit about how you became a child actor.
Sure. Well, I started acting when I was very young. I was 4 years old when I started doing commercials. And it was kind of one of those weird stories. I am Canadian. I lived outside of Toronto. And I was in a mall with my parents when I was 4. And there was a guy who was producing a commercial that he thought I would be perfect for. So he gave my parents his card and wanted them to call. And it kind of all snowballed from there.
Wow.
So I started...
Yeah. 4 years old. That's wild. Yeah.
Commercials. Yeah. I started doing commercials, going out on auditions, and then eventually moved into doing guest stars on television shows. And then when I was about 11, I started going to Los Angeles and auditioning for projects out there, and then started doing more television shows, movies, and it all just kind of happened.
Wow. And so your parents decided to move out there once they saw that you were going to be successful at this, right? It sounds like.
We never moved as a family. We really tried to keep a home base in Toronto. So I would go back and forth to Los Angeles or go back and forth to wherever the location might be for the shoot. But we really tried to keep Canada as kind of a grounding place for me. So it wasn't like I uprooted my whole family and we moved. There was just a lot of flying across the country that happened.
So back and forth during your childhood and through that process, again, schooling was different for you than lots of other kids then, right? It sounds like it's going to be.
Absolutely. I did most of my schooling with tutors on set. I did some homeschooling, and then when I wasn't working, I would go to a regular school. But that got increasingly less common as I worked more. But there are rules about working on set when you're a child as far as school goes. So you have to have 3 hours per day for schooling. And I had some really great set tutors who were really devoted and very good at helping young actors balance work and school.
So the process when you knew, I guess, that you're different than everyone else, when you would be in school, did you have your big break by that point? Did they know, like, especially when we're talking about Mrs. Doubtfire, did you have your big break and that people are saying, oh my gosh, I know who you are? Or did you, when you weren't going to school, they just knew you were an actor, but they didn't really know what parts you played in? What would you say?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I was just starting high school when I did Mrs. Doubtfire. So before that, kids knew I was an actor because I would be gone for months at a time, and then I would kind of reappear. But once I hit high school, I think I did maybe 2 weeks of grade 9 before I left for several months to film Mrs. Doubtfire. And clearly that changed a lot because I was much more recognizable after that. So it was always a balancing act, trying to figure out how to do both and go back to, a quote-unquote normal school and be a normal kid.
Here's the question I have to ask, Lisa, in a lot of ways. Was Mrs. Doubtfire your big break, would you say, that kind of put you on the map as an actress?
I guess most people would say that that was true. I think as far as recognizability goes, everything did change after Mrs. Doubtfire. It was a hugely popular movie, and I had that crazy long hair, so everybody noticed that first. So, yeah, I think definitely life got a little different after Mrs. Doubtfire.
And I saw your bio on Twitter, and it said basically two things, Mrs. Doubtfire, then Independence Day. But were there other films that our listeners out there would have heard of that you were in after Mrs. Doubtfire? You said Independence Day's one of them. We could talk about specifically that. Was that when you were in high school, or were you in college by that point? I mean, were you done from high school when you were in Independence Day?
Yeah, Independence Day was after Doubtfire, so I was a little older. I might have been 17, 18 at that point. But I also did Rambling Rose. That was when I was 11. That was with Robert Duvall, Diane Ladd, and Laura Dern. That was a wonderful experience. It's a great little movie, not quite as notable as Doubtfire was as far as recognizability, but it was a really great film, actually. Diane Ladd and Laura Dern both got nominated for Oscars, which was interesting because it was the first time that a mother-daughter duo had been nominated for the same film.
Oh, wow. So you were involved in some very interesting films, and throughout that process, there's always work. I've talked to many actors that what happens, once you get a big one, it's very easy for your agent to pitch you to get another audition. And then it just leads from there to becoming a working actor. So at that point in high school, after Mrs. Doubtfire, were you not traveling as much back to Canada because you were having a lot of work? Would you say that's when it really kind of exploded work-wise, would you say, right after that?
Yeah, I think I definitely was working more. I would try to always go back to Canada just because I found that to be very grounding. But it was definitely getting harder to live that Canadian life that I loved so much, that was simple and quiet, because I was working more.
And you're one of those, there are a lot of Canadian actors and actresses that have been very successful and come to the States, but they always want to go back to Canada because it's more laid back, right? Especially Hollywood. That must be a complete difference from dealing with Toronto and Hollywood. Must be just tremendous culture shock in certain ways when you first went there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're very different places, and I think I loved that. I loved having that contrast in my life.
So after, in the story, I wanted to ask a couple other questions, but I'm kind of leading you in a story based on the answers of the questions. I'm kind of going into what's happened in life after acting. So you did some more acting, and then you decided, which is a very surprising thing, because I talk to them all the time. It's such a passionate thing to be an actor. And then to say, I'm going to retire, especially when you're young still, it must have been, was it a hard decision when you decided, I'm going to hang it up for now?
It definitely was a difficult decision. But I think I realized that I didn't really have that passion that you were just speaking of. A lot of my friends who were actors did have that passion. I saw it around me every day. People that would give up anything to do this job. I liked my job. For the most part, I had a good time doing it. It was fun. I got to travel and meet interesting people. But after working for 18 years, I realized that I didn't have that deep longing to be an actor anymore. And that's a very difficult realization when you are a working actor, when you have what other people think you should want,
exactly.
And you realize you don't really want it anymore.
And
so that was a very difficult realization to come to figure out, well, what do I do now? Because I didn't graduate from high school. I started working so much, I just wasn't able to finish high school. I had not gone to college. I wasn't sure what else I was capable of doing. I had no plan B. I had no fallback. I was too busy working to come up with what I would do when I wasn't working. So that was a very difficult time for me, but I realized that life is short and that I didn't want to keep on doing a job just because I had done it since I was 4 years old. I wanted to be more responsible for my life and its past than that.
And I think that's a mature decision you made. And and when you talk about you could be working full time as an actor, and a lot of people wish they could have that opportunity and the talent. You decided I want more in life. And a lot of people, if you don't have the passion, you shouldn't stay in it. And when you made that decision, life after acting must have been difficult at first, you said, because you didn't have a backup plan. You didn't have anything. You just said, it must have been one day you just said, you know what, I want to do something else. And that's pretty much what you probably did. Yeah.
There were many factors. This is never a simple decision that somebody comes to just immediately. It's messy, and there were lots of factors that went into it. But one thing that was very, I guess, kind of opened my eyes was I was considering leaving all through 2001. 9/11 happened, and I started going to auditions at movie studios where there was massive security, and there would be bomb-sniffing dogs all around my car and guys crawling underneath to see if there were bombs, and the film studios were very tense places at that point. And I realized I don't want to die doing this job. I realized that nothing is guaranteed.
Yes.
And so that was a big realization for me. And I left Los Angeles in December of 2001.
And had to pick up the pieces. And what's amazing is this is only part one of this, Lisa. We're going to have to book you next month to kind of get into this more. But I mean, very, very interesting story, and something that I see that it takes a lot of guts to do this. And I'm going to give you a quick storyline of myself. I was a professional wrestler, and I was in one of the peak of my career. I was in Germany, which could have led to the WWF, and I just decided I want to hang it up. I don't want to go. I want to have a family. This is not the place for a family. And I stopped. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life. But looking back, somehow it led me back into the entertainment field later on in my career through teaching. So you never know when you will be back again. I had a conversation with another actress who decided I'm going to raise my kids and do all this stuff, then come back into the business. So the business will always be there for you. It's just a time where I'm retiring now to pursue other things, and I can't wait to hear more of the story. But for our listeners that can't wait till part 2 of our interview, where can we find information on you and purchase your book and learn more about you, Lisa?
So, of course, I am on Facebook and Twitter, because you have to be on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check out my website, which is at www.lisajakub.net. Jacob is spelled a little strangely. It's Jakub. And then you can find my Facebook and Twitter from there as well.
Well, Lisa, I'm going to schedule you for next month, and it's very easy to deal with you because I can just reach out to you and get it booked. I like that. That makes it an easy process, and love to hear more about this story because it's a very, very interesting story, and it kind of parallels my story in certain aspects because I did the same thing. I kind of got off the stage for a while, but then I came back. But again, I was for about almost the same time as you were in acting, close to, and I miss it at times, but it was one of the greatest decisions I made because I grew so much. So thanks for calling, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story. So thanks for calling again.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care, Lisa. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. You're listening to Told Education, celebrity show on the Told Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.